I never thought I'd see my brother again. 5 years. That's how long he'd been gone. No calls, no letters, no trace. Just vanished one night, like a shadow that walked out of our lives. I was 22 then, old enough to understand that something was wrong but too young to handle what it did to our family. His name was Adil. My older brother. My hero once. We grew up together in a small town. 2 brothers sharing the same roof, the same food, and the same dreams. But as we got older, something changed. He became restless. He started keeping secrets. Mom said he was just figuring himself out, but I knew there was more to it. The night he disappeared still haunts me. I remember it vividly, the sound of the rain against the window, the creak of the front door, and then, silence. When I went to check, his shoes were gone. His room was empty. His phone was left on the bed. No note. No goodbye. For weeks, our house felt like a ghost story. Mom stopped cooking. Dad stopped talking. I tried to stay strong, but every night, I'd sit in his room, waiting, as if he'd just walk back in like nothing happened. Police called it a runaway case. I never believed it. Adil wasn't the kind of guy who'd just walk away. Something happened to him. Something dark. Years passed, and life moved on, or at least, pretended to. Mom eventually smiled again, though her eyes always looked like they were searching for someone. Dad never mentioned Adil. It was as if my brother had been erased from the family's history. But I never stopped looking. Every time I saw a man on the street with his build or heard someone laugh like him, my heart would skip. I'd follow strangers in crowds, half hoping and half terrified. Then one evening, everything changed. It was an ordinary day. I was closing the small garage where I worked. Greasy hands, tired eyes, same routine. The sun was setting, painting the sky a dull orange. That's when I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Need a hand with that, little brother?" The wrench slipped from my hand and clattered to the floor. I turned around, my heart in my throat. It was him. Adil stood there, older, leaner, wearing a leather jacket, eyes hidden behind dark sunglasses. His hair was shorter, his posture stiff. But it was him. I'd have known that voice anywhere. My mouth went dry. "Adil," I whispered. He smiled, that same half-smirk I remembered from when we were kids. "Miss me?" I just stood there, frozen. My brain couldn't process it. The man in front of me was my brother, but something about him felt wrong. He walked closer, and I noticed the faint scar along his neck. His face looked tired, like he hadn't slept in days. He hugged me briefly, cold, mechanical, like a stranger mimicking affection. "I can't believe it," I said, stepping back. "Where have you been? We thought you were dead." He chuckled softly. "Dead? Nah. Just away. Needed time to figure things out." 5 years. Adil. 5 years without a word. My voice cracked. "Do you even know what that did to Mom?" His expression didn't change. He just looked past me, as if something behind me mattered more. "Is she home?" Yeah. But..." Before I could finish, he started walking toward the car parked outside. A black SUV. Tinted windows. No plates. My stomach tightened. "Who's that?" I asked, nodding at the car. He paused for a moment, then turned with a faint smile. "Just friends. Don't worry about it." Something about the way he said it made my skin crawl. The tone, the detachment, the way he avoided my eyes. This wasn't the brother I remembered. That night, he came home. Mom broke down the moment she saw him. She dropped to her knees, sobbing, holding his face, whispering prayers of gratitude. Dad stood frozen in the doorway, tears rolling down his cheeks. It should have been a perfect reunion. But I couldn't shake the feeling that the man standing in our living room wasn't truly Adil. He spoke less, smiled rarely. He didn't remember small things, like the nickname Mom used to call him or the song we used to sing on long drives. His favorite food wasn't the same. He didn't even flinch when our dog ran up to him. Adil used to love that dog. Every night, I'd hear him whispering on the phone in another language, one I couldn't recognize. When I asked, he said it was business. But then one night, I found him in the backyard, digging a hole. When he saw me, he froze. For a second, his eyes, those familiar eyes, looked completely foreign. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice shaking. He smiled faintly. "Burying the past," he said. I laughed nervously. "What does that even mean?" He just looked at me for a long second, then said quietly, "Some things are better left underground." That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound in the house felt louder than usual. The floor creaked, the clock ticked like a heartbeat, and outside, the wind howled against the windows. But what kept me awake wasn't the noise. It was the image of my brother standing in the backyard, shovel in hand, whispering something to himself. The next morning, he acted like nothing happened. He sat at the breakfast table with Mom and Dad, eating silently. Mom couldn't stop smiling. She looked alive again. Dad kept asking questions, where he'd been, what he'd been doing, but Adil dodged every one. "Just moving around," he said. "Working with some people overseas. I'll tell you when it's time." That phrase, "when it's time," stuck in my head. After breakfast, I followed him outside. "Adil," I said, keeping my tone calm, "what were you doing last night?" He paused, then gave me that same unreadable smile. "You always were the curious one." "I'm serious," I said. "I saw you. You were digging. What were you burying?" He leaned closer, his eyes dark and cold. "If you know what's good for you, you'll stop asking questions." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The brother I grew up with, the one who used to protect me from bullies, had never spoken to me like that. I watched him walk away, his shoulders stiff, his steps heavy. Over the next few days, his behavior grew even stranger. He started leaving late at night, coming back at dawn, covered in dirt and sweat. I once caught him in the kitchen at 3 a.m., cleaning what looked like blood off his hands. When I asked, he said it was paint. But it wasn't paint. I knew that smell. I started searching his room when he was out. Inside his bag, I found a small metal box. Locked. Heavy. I shook it gently. Something rattled inside. I almost opened it, but something stopped me. Fear. When he returned that evening, I pretended to be asleep, but I heard him enter the room. His footsteps stopped near my bed. I felt his shadow fall over me, and for a moment, I thought he was watching to see if I was awake. Then he whispered, in that same unfamiliar language, something I couldn't understand. The next day, I couldn't take it anymore. I went to the backyard, to the spot where I saw him digging. The dirt looked disturbed. I grabbed a small trowel from the shed and started digging quietly, my heart hammering in my chest. After a few inches, I hit something hard. Metal. I cleared the soil and saw the edge of a small tin box, old and rusted. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were a few things, a photo, a ring, and what looked like an old ID card. I wiped the dirt off the photo. It was Adil, or someone who looked like him, but younger, thinner, and wearing a military uniform. On the ID, the name wasn't Adil Khan. It was Arif Malik. My stomach dropped. Whoever he was, this wasn't my brother. Or at least, not anymore. That night, I couldn't look at him the same way. Mom and Dad didn't notice. They were too happy to have him home. But I saw it, the way his hands shook when someone mentioned his old friends, the way his eyes darted to the window whenever a car passed. He was hiding something big. Then one evening, it all exploded. A knock came at the door, 3 sharp bangs. My father opened it. 2 men stood outside. Plain clothes, serious faces. They flashed badges. "Is this the Khan residence?" one asked. Dad nodded, confused. "Yes, it is. Can I help you?" "We're looking for someone. A man named Arif Malik." Every muscle in my body froze. I looked at Adil, or whoever he was. His face went pale. "I think you've got the wrong house," Dad said quickly. The older officer's eyes narrowed. "Maybe. Mind if we take a look?" Before Dad could answer, Adil spoke. "It's okay. I'll handle this." He stepped forward, calm but tense. "I think there's been some mistake," he said. The officer pulled out a photo, the same one I found in the box. "Doesn't look like a mistake to me." Mom gasped. "Adil, what's going on?" He turned to her, eyes soft but full of guilt. "Mom, I need you to trust me, okay? Whatever you hear, don't believe everything." Before anyone could react, he bolted, out the back door, into the night. The officers shouted and ran after him. Mom screamed. I stood frozen, watching the taillights of the police car disappear down the road. Hours later, they came back, without him. They asked questions, where he'd been, what we knew. Dad was furious, demanding answers. That's when one of the officers finally spoke quietly. "Your son isn't who you think he is." I felt my knees weaken. "What do you mean?" I asked. "He was involved in something, an operation overseas. We've been looking for him for months. He disappeared under the name Adil Khan, but his real identity is classified. All I can tell you is, the man who returned to you may not be the same man who left." The words hit like thunder. Mom started crying again, louder this time. Dad just sat down, head in his hands, silent. I couldn't speak. I didn't know what to believe. Had Adil been replaced? Recruited? Brainwashed? Or was he running from something worse? All I knew was, the man who came back looked like my brother, sounded like my brother, but deep down, he wasn't him. And somehow, I had to find out the truth. For days after Adil vanished again, the house felt like a tomb. Mom barely spoke. Dad spent most of his time staring out the window, waiting for headlights that never came. I tried to focus on work, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw him, his shadow in the hallway, his voice in the dark, whispering that strange language I still couldn't forget. Then one morning, I received an email. No subject line, no name, just an attachment. I hesitated before opening it, but curiosity won. It was a short video clip, grainy, low resolution. At first, all I saw was a flickering light and movement in the shadows. Then a face appeared. Adil. He looked exhausted, bruised, unshaven, eyes hollow. He was in some kind of dimly lit room, maybe a basement or a safe house. "Zarin," he said. "My name. If you're seeing this, then I didn't make it back." My hands trembled as he continued. "I need you to know, I didn't abandon you. I didn't lie to you. I became someone else. Because I had to. What happened overseas wasn't what they told you. I saw things, did things, and I couldn't come back the same man." He paused, breathing heavily. "There's something buried in the old shed. Under the floorboards. You'll find the rest there. But be careful who you trust." The video cut off. I sat frozen for minutes, my heart pounding in my chest. Then I ran outside to the shed. The air was thick, heavy with dust and memory. I ripped open the wooden floorboards and saw a black waterproof bag hidden underneath. Inside was a notebook, an old flash drive, and, shockingly, another ID. Not Arif Malik. This time, the name read Lieutenant Adil Khan, Intelligence Division. So he hadn't been lying entirely. He had worked overseas. But why the secrecy? Why the police chase? I plugged the flash drive into my laptop. There were encrypted files, and one short document that wasn't locked. It was a report. An operation summary from a classified mission. According to it, Adil's unit was ambushed during a covert operation abroad. He was presumed dead, but he survived. The mission's purpose? To expose corruption within his own intelligence department. The traitors he was supposed to bring down were the very people hunting him now. It all started to make sense. The police weren't looking for justice. They were looking for silence. I wanted to tell Mom and Dad, but I couldn't risk it. If they found out and accidentally said something, they could be targeted too. That night, I couldn't sleep again. Around 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. "Zarin, The voice whispered, "Don't hang up." It was him. Adil. My throat tightened. "Where are you? What's happening?" "Listen to me," he said, breath ragged. "They found me. I don't have much time. The people who came to the house, they're not police. They're part of the same network I was investigating. You need to protect Mom and Dad." "Where are you? I can help." "No," he snapped. "You don't understand. They'll use you to get to me. Promise me you'll keep them safe. Promise me." My voice cracked. "I promise." There was silence. Then he whispered, "Tell Mom I'm sorry. Tell Dad I did it for us." And the line went dead. That was the last time I ever heard my brother's voice. 2 days later, the news broke. A body had been found near the border, burnt beyond recognition, but the documents nearby identified him as Arif Malik. Mom collapsed when she heard. Dad didn't speak for days. But I knew. Deep down, I knew that wasn't him. The man in that report, the man who sent me that message, he wouldn't just die and vanish like that. Still, we held a small funeral. No body, just an empty coffin. Mom placed Adil's old photo inside before it was lowered into the ground. After the burial, I stayed behind as everyone left. I stood there, staring at the grave, when I noticed something strange, a small folded piece of paper tucked under the headstone. I unfolded it with trembling hands. It was a note. In Adil's handwriting. "They think I'm dead. Keep it that way. Protect them. When it's time, you'll understand everything. A." Tears blurred my vision. He was alive. Somewhere out there, still running, still fighting. Months passed. Life slowly returned to normal, or at least the version of normal you create after losing someone twice. Mom started cooking again. Dad began working in the garden. But sometimes, late at night, I'd get strange emails. Blank, no text, just coordinates. I never replied. I never traced them. But I always saved them. And once, when I checked one of those coordinates on a map, it pointed to a small coastal village, far from here, across the world. There, on satellite view, I saw a small house by the water. A man sitting on the porch, looking out at the sea. He looked familiar. Maybe it was just my mind playing tricks. Or maybe my brother was still watching, still making sure we were safe. Whatever the truth was, one thing became clear. He hadn't vanished. He'd simply become someone else, again. And somewhere out there, under a different name, in a different life, my brother was still alive.